खेल रेडियो पर आप सबका बहुत स्वागत है. I am Riya Mishra, the co-founder of Khel Radio and your host for today. Right now we have with us Akash Batra, co-founder of Khel Radio and a trainee at 14 Sports Law and also my co-host, Mr. Abhishek Sharma, partner and mentor Khel Radio. We have with us Mr. Randeep Barua. He is the head of academy and women's football at Odisha FC. We also have a few very special guests in conversation with us today, and I'm thrilled to get the opportunity to introduce them on this episode of Khel Radio. First, we have with us the phenomenal Ashalata Devi, who captains the Indian women's national football team and Gokulam Kerala FC, an Indian women's league club. She's one of the finest defenders in Asia and is a great role model for young girls. As a part of Setu FC, Ashalata won her maiden IWL trophy in 2018 and has brought laurels to India in women's football through wins in the South Asian Football Federation Women's Championship and South Asian Games. She was also awarded the AIFF Women's Player of the Year 2018-2019 and was nominated for the AFC Women's Player of the Year 2019. It is an absolute honor to have you with us today, Ashalata. Second joining us today is Aditi Chauhan, the goalkeeper of the Indian women's national football team and Gokulam Kerala FC. Aditi boasts of a successful international career, having played for West Ham United ladies for 2 seasons and becoming the first player from Indian women's team to play competitively in England and the first Indian woman to play English League football. Apart from being a stellar goalkeeper, Aditi has also played her part in contributing towards women's football in India and making the beautiful sport of football accessible to girls in India through the She Kicks Football Academy. Again, Aditi, we are absolutely thrilled to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you so much. Finally, we have with us Miss Pilla Rima. Every sport needs a fan base to keep the sports persons encouraged. And Miss Pilla Rima is the co-founder of Women's Football India, which is the largest fan base for all things women's football in India. Miss Pilla Rima, we are so excited to get your views on the topics we'll be discussing today as a representative of the fan base of the women's football in India. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we're absolutely thrilled to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
So there's so much that we want to talk to all of you about. But before we deep dive, let's take a quick look at Indian under-17 women's team's upcoming matches in the next few days. India is playing the USA on 11th October. We are playing against Morocco on the 14th of October and finally against Brazil on 17th October. All these matches will be happening in Kalinga Stadium, Bhubaneswar. I think at this point, it'll be interesting to know everyone's match predictions and what you think is going to be happening in the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup India edition. So let's get started. And Abhishek, I would like to request you to please take over.
Thank you. Thank you, Ria, for introducing everyone and introducing all of us. I think with the fixtures that are there, for me, one of the most exciting fixture is the India-Brazil game because it's Brazil and it is something that I genuinely look forward to. I think the opening game, India-US, is a very big hype game also, which is a good game. But India-Brazil, baat hi alag hai. You know, it's a different ball game. When the senior national teams also, when they went and played with Brazil, it was a different feeling. The friendly that they played and everything. So I think India-Brazil is something that I would really look forward to because it's Brazil and football and everything. So for me, I think that game is something that I will just be hooked on to. Maybe I'll gather a crowd, maybe just invite people for free, do screenings. I don't know what, but that is a game that I would look forward to. That's from my opinion. I think, that is something that's interesting.
Yeah, I think same for me. These games are pretty big, and I think since we'll be competing against these footballing giants, it'll be quite interesting to see that. And in terms of prediction, मेरे ख्याल से एटलीस्ट एक मैच 3 में से पक्का जीतेंगे, एटलीस्ट 5 गोल एक मैच पक्का जीतेंगे. और आगे इन टर्म्स ऑफ प्रेडिक्शन ओवर टू द प्लेयर्स, अदिति और आशालता, आपके हिसाब से क्या रहेगा 3 मैचेस का?
इंटरेस्टिंग है क्योंकि मैं अभी अभिषेक बोल रहा था कि maybe the Brazil, of course, as a fan, the Brazil game will be the most entertaining. And I was just thinking to myself, but maybe as a player, Morocco game would probably be something that I would want to play, and because that will be a competitive match. That's the team that's going to be playing the World Cup for the first time, and they've obviously done well. But I think because you don't know what's their standard. You've not seen them before. Of course, we know the history of US and Brazil, but as a player, I think and someone who wants to enjoy a good competitive match, I think that would be a game that I am excited about and I want to watch. Of course, it's India playing anyone. That's always exciting, and we are always there. But just thinking from a player's perspective, I feel Morocco game will be something that I would love to play.
Morocco game is opportunity,
Yeah.
for us. Yeah, वो opportunity है. Yeah, that'll be a good
Yeah,
game.
and it is a real test of what we've actually,
Correct.
we've
Correct.
played, we've trained, we've obviously not got enough exposure as we should have for the preparation of the under 17, I feel. But with wherever we are right now, I feel that could be a game that is going to be a good opportunity, like Abhishek said, and a good competitive match.
Absolutely. तो आशा आपको क्या लगता है कि as a sports person, knowing that there are so many big teams playing, आपको क्या लगता है कि what is going to be really interesting is in games में, knowing that we are playing against USA, Brazil. So what are your predictions for the upcoming matches?
क्योंकि जब भी हम लोग अच्छा कंट्रीज और हाई लेवल टीम के साथ खेलते हैं ना, तो और एनर्जी आता है. तो स्पेशली ये यंग गर्ल्स और उनके पास और एक्स्ट्रा एनर्जी होता है. सो मेरे हिसाब से ये लोग एब्सोल्युटली कि 100% मतलब पूरा परफॉर्म करेंगे. पर या मोरोको ये मैच मैं हम लोग मतलब एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं कि ये मैच जीते, क्योंकि और बाकी जो भी मैचेस है उसमें मुझे लगता है कि जो हेड कोच है वो बहुत टेक्निकली और टेक्टिकली बहुत नॉलेज है. सो ये दोनों यूएसए और ब्राजील वाली मैच में भी वो कुछ ना कुछ करने के लिए वो कोशिश करेंगे, क्योंकि जैसे हम लोग ने ब्राजील के साथ जो मैचेस खेला था, बट हम लोग ने बहुत हमने कभी सोचा भी नहीं था हम लोग इतना गोल में गोल रुक पाएंगे और इतना गोल में हारेंगे. हम बहुत ज्यादा एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे थे कि बहुत ज्यादा गोल खाने वाले हैं ऐसे. तो जो डिपेंड करते हैं कि जो कोचेस है वो भी किस तरीका की गेम खिलाने वाले. सो ये दोनों मैचेस बहुत अच्छा रहेगा मेरे हिसाब से.
That's actually very right. और एक और बात देखा जाए तो मोरक्को के लिए भी पहला वर्ल्ड कप है उनका, also for Tanzania. So with these two teams, I think we also have somewhat of a level playing field, and especially against Morocco, I'm very sure that our girls will score a lot of goals, and I'm hoping that they win by a margin of at least 2 or 3. And for the rest of the matches, also predictions over to you, Randeep sir, since you know these players, also since you have seen these players personally as well. What are your opinions about the current Indian side and how they are going to perform in the upcoming matches?
So I think somewhere that player inside me is still there, and I completely agree with Aditi. I know you're laughing because you're like, that's what got you into trouble in the first place. I know that, but I am with Aditi on this and Asha as well, because I think the Morocco game is going to be really interesting. We know that the US and Brazil have very set structures, right, from their youth stages, from the grassroots levels upward, and that's how high a level that Brazil plays at. Having watched these girls very regularly here in Bhubaneswar practice with Thomas and Jane and the rest of them with Nivita, and watching them play against our state team girls as well, I've seen them perform at a level that I am so excited by. I really am, and this is with all due respect to the senior team, but these girls have something else, because they are being taught at a very, very impressionable age the right sort of techniques and tactics to make it forward in the women's game, in the game, not just the women's game, but in the game. Because as Asha said, Thomas is very, very tactically sound. He's a really good coach, and he's very exciting to watch when you're sitting on the sidelines, because he really pumps up the team to play better, and he knows he knows every player by name and by heart, and he knows the strengths and qualities of every player that's going to come out there and perform to the level that he's expecting them to. And as far as the level playing field is concerned, I think simply because Morocco is also playing in their first World Cup, and as are we, it is going to be a far more exciting game to watch and predict. I'm not good with predictions, so I'll skip that part. But to be honest, I'm very excited about the Morocco match as far as seeing what the true potential of our girls are. In watching the Brazil and the US game, I would like to see where we can get to, because those are levels that we have to start aspiring to right from this age, this very impressionable 16, 17, 18-year age. And I think it's going to be a very good opportunity for all of us to see where we really stand. When the senior team went and played in Brazil, they put up a good show. And honestly, Asha, मुझे नहीं लगता आप लोग इतने goals खाने वाले भी थे. Okay? You underestimate yourself. I am a huge fan, first of all. I think you're a fabulous player. I think you control the defense very, very well. You are a role model that the girls look up to. And you have Aditi there. You're an inspiration to girls like Sweetie and Sanju and Dalima and everyone. And I think you have a lot more value than even you seem to realize, which is good in a way. But honestly, I think these girls today want to be in their steps, and follow their footsteps, and they're great role models as well. And I've seen a lot of talent, Ria, as you said, I watch them regularly, and there is a lot of talent in this under 17 team. There's some really good players, very exciting players. And yeah, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I would like to have a couple of them play for RCFC as well, because I think we want to give them that long-term platform to grow on and become footballers who represent the country, represent the club, and maybe follow in the footsteps of Ati, who's played abroad and seen it at the highest level. And I'm talking about what, Ati, 5-6 years ago now, no? When you were back in West Ham. It's been a while.
Yeah, 2017 was
17. So
5 years.
5 years now. So now again we are seeing Soumya and Jyoti go to Croatia. We're seeing Manisha in Greece. So these are the things that we want to see. They're going to be scouts from all over the world watching these games, and we hope that a few of our players are looked at, and some of them are good enough to be looked at to go and play abroad. But again, coming back, I think Brazil and USA are going to be fun just to watch the level that these girls are competing in. But Morocco one should be very interesting to see how we really are, where we really stand in terms of the kind of exposure and learning that these girls have had in the last couple of years.
Absolutely. So Filarima, I think it'll be interesting to know, as someone who obviously follows women's football in India so closely, what do you think about the upcoming matches that India will be playing against the three teams?
I think it's going to be pretty exciting. The fans are all pumped up, and this is a very huge event for women's football. So we're really pumped up for it. And looking at the games, I mean, I've been watching a few of the qualifiers into the World Cup. The US team was amazing, but then I think Brazil is at another level altogether. They actually do have two players who played in the under 20 World Cup, which just happened a few months ago. So they're going to be a really good team to beat. But I'm more excited for the India-US game, actually. I want to see how these girls perform against the US, because the US have been doing the structure of their league, the structure of the women's game there, it's really well. So I would really love to see how they will perform against the US, but then I think Brazil is on a league of its own.
Absolutely very right. It'll be quite interesting to see how these matches pan out. Now, taking the discussion forward, I think the first point which we need to address is bridging the gap between, the gender disparity between participation of women and men in Indian football. So I think my first question or point of conversation will be to Abhishek, to sort of like lay down a premise so that the panel can discuss about the opportunities for women football in India, the opportunities that this World Cup is getting to our young girls, and also to sort of like, discuss the importance of achieving and moving towards a more gender parity in the sport. And I think it's quite interesting to also note that our women are definitely ranked a lot better than the men's team currently as per the FIFA ranking. They are 58, if I'm not wrong, and the men stand at 106, which is pretty great to know. So over to you, Abhishek.
Yeah, I missed some part of your question, but I got the second half of it. So
My question
yeah,
essentially to you is that this World Cup is obviously like getting a lot of resources, a lot of outlet to the Indian women footballing setup. My question
correct.
essentially is that what else do we need to achieve in terms of, achieving a more gender equality and gender parity in women
Correct. Correct.
participation in football in India?
Correct. Um, so like I had discussed earlier, in the last 15 years, if we see a pattern for sports in India, it has always been the women sportsmen who've achieved more than the men sportsmen. And if I take the stats out and everything like that, it just simply proves that a lot of women athletes in India can compete and actually win medals and get Indian ranking higher than the men's do. So I think in the last decade, we have recognized that. We have understood that the girls and the boys have to be given the same uh, levels, the same, it has to be the same ground for them. So knowing that, now when I look at women's football objectively from the outside, the difference is not only just gender equality but the opportunity. So men's को जो opportunity मिलती है, if the women's got the same opportunity and if there was a better structure in the league, I bet you on it that women's team can actually win something in Asia. We can take baby steps to go there. Like earlier I was saying, there are high chances for Odisha FC's women's team to be successful in the next 3-4 years than the men's team will be. This is my perspective. So I think AIFF, like we were talking earlier, has to play a very important role in shaping up the mindset and the pyramid for football in India. It cannot just be like 80% given to men and 20% given to women. So these are things that has to change. Our approach has to be a lot more professional. The games that when I hear from Aditi, Asha, all these players, the competitive matches for the national team also has to increase. Then only we will know okay, how we are competing, what level are we at. It can't be in a year we do 5 matches and then we are okay with it. You have to continuously keep participating, and it just can't be South America, Europe. I think it has to be very importantly looked at somewhere in Asia as well. So I think understanding and giving that equal opportunity, if the men's team is playing 20 matches, they should put down a calendar to give 20 matches to women's team as well, because that's how it's going to grow. Second thing is, I think IWL का structure improve होना बहुत जरूरी है. I am not a very big fan of ठीक है under 17 World Cup आया है, but if I get into the hard hitting questions, what happened after the under 17 World Cup of the men's team that happened? So some of these players are playing at good clubs in the ISL and everything. I represent some of those players as well, but there was no legacy program, there was no structure, there was no pathway that was made. So I don't want this under 17 World Cup is a massive opportunity for generic fans and for people to be involved in लड़कियां फुटबॉल खेल सकती है, right? And this is for a chance for us to prove that. But also to hard hitting questions is future में plan क्या है, कितनी consistency से हम ये development करेंगे, how consistent are we going to be? Are we going to keep a under 17, under 19? Are we going to make a league structure like that? Because senior structure of IWL is too short. And if the senior structure is not right, what do I do with the structure that comes behind that? So I think these are questions, and these are some of the things that has to be tackled by the AIFF. Something that I will give you an example where another team sport that I've seen in India, and I represent those players, is in hockey. Now, men's hockey and women's hockey are given equal opportunities. It's equal. At the end of the day, earlier, hockey was mostly men dominated and centric dominated, कि पंजाब से आएंगे प्लेयर या कुर्ग से आएंगे या यहाँ से आएंगे. But वो dynamic change हो गया. There are so many hockey players who come from Odisha as well. So जैसे हॉकी फेडरेशन ने मेंस और विमेन को सेम प्लेटफॉर्म दिया है, वेयर आज अगर विमेन्स टीम भी जीतती है, they are recognized more than the men's team, because it's a given that men's team will perform. But जब women's team जाकर जीतती है, तो that perspective changes. I think something like that can be introduced in football. जो level playing ground है for men's and women's has to be equal. अगर from the top, if it comes like that, that will bring the change. So this is my personal opinion, what I think. Second thing will be just very quick, grassroots development. तो आप शुरू से ही अगर बच्चों को खिलाओगे, like a girl and a boy from the age of 5 play together, then there is no discrimination. आप समझ रहे हो? There is no issue with girls. तो नहीं लड़कियां, girls will play separate, boys will play separate. If you start from the age of 5 to 12, if you get both the genders to come and play together, it changes their mindset. It changes how you shape up. And this is a mentality change that has to happen in India. When you go abroad, like I studied the model that is there in Uruguay, Belgium. I've studied football models all around. When you see these models, you understand what is the difference, what is their grassroots program and things like that. So I think grassroots development and AIFF taking a harder call on structuring women's football is very important. World Cup हो रहा है, it's a very good thing. बहुत खुशी की बात है. World Cup के बाद क्या होगा is the important thing. So अगर इसके around plan नहीं बनेगा, then I think again it goes back to us trying to figure out, and some of us ranting online saying I'm not happy. So this is my take on it.
Absolutely. That's, I think, the best approach to take. And as you mentioned, it needs to happen at a grassroots level. I think an interesting thing to note at this point is the kickoff, the Dream Carnival that was being conducted in Bhubaneswar, which also one of the key things that I read about was that it saw equal participation from young boys and girls. So I feel like these initiatives where there was a football camp,
Exactly.
and I think that becomes too important. If you want to create a safe space, it has to start much earlier.
Correct.
And I think as so Aditi and Asha Lata, as sports persons, आप लोग फील्ड पे हो, ऑफ द फील्ड हो, तो it is important to understand कि आपका perception क्या है. What do you think कि बेहतर हुआ है in the past few years in terms of gender inclusivity, in terms of providing opportunities for women in football? What do you think still needs to be done? अभी तक बहुत कुछ है जो अभी होना बाकी है. We have not reached an ideal spot yet, and we are a long way away from it. So what do you think needs to be done, and what do you think has been done so far in order to inculcate gender parity, gender inclusivity in football?
काफी चीजें चेंजेस हुई है. जैसे हमने गेम खेलना स्टार्ट किया था तब भी मतलब बहुत कुछ भी नहीं था उस टाइम पे, क्योंकि उस टाइम पे ऐसा था कि मतलब लड़का और लड़की में बहुत फर्क देखते थे. फॉर एग्जांपल हमारे टीए में भी बहुत डिफरेंस था, डे अलाउंस ये भी मेंस और वुमेन्स का. सो अभी काफी 2-3 साल पहले से वो भी इक्वल करने की बहुत कोशिश किया.
एंड जस्ट एडिंग देयर कि बहुत सा देयर वर टाइम्स व्हेन पूरा साल चला जाता था एंड वी डिडंट इवन हैव अ सिंगल मैच. So that's where we had started. That's where we both started our career. That we wanted to play, but there were no leagues. There were no nationals also organized. Sometimes the whole year used to go by. National team का भी कुछ assignment नहीं होता था. So we've comparing and coming from there, I think a lot of changes have happened.
हाँ, और बस साल में एक ही टूर्नामेंट खेलने का मिलता था, और अभी IWL थोड़ा हेल्प कर रहे हैं, फिर भी हम लोग पुश कर रहे हैं कि थोड़ा ज्यादा एक्सटेंड करे, या 2-3 महीने का या 3-4 महीने का, मतलब वो मतलब हम रिक्वेस्ट करते रहते हैं, पर बोलते हैं कि कोशिश कर रहे हैं। और अभी अंडर 17 वर्ल्ड कप के बाद भी अंडर 17 वीमेंस लीग कोशिश कर रहे हैं वो रखने के लिए, बट ये रखेगा तो बहुत अच्छा रहेगा, क्योंकि जब हम लोग मतलब जब अंडर 17 या अंडर 19 की टाइम पे हमने कभी ऐसे लीग खेलने का मौका नहीं मिलता था, क्योंकि वो चीजें हमें मिलता तो मे बी हम लोग इससे भी बेटर मतलब हो सकते थे, बट ठीक है हमारे टाइम में नहीं हुआ, पर हमें फ्यूचर के लिए बहुत सारी चीजें चेंजेस करना पड़ेगा। पर उसकी मतलब साथ साथ हमें मतलब लोगों से भी बहुत सारी चीजें हमें एक्सपेक्ट करती हूँ, क्योंकि जैसे मेंस फुटबॉल में कोई भी लीग या कोई भी टूर्नामेंट में बहुत सारा मतलब एक्सपोजर, बहुत सारा क्या बोलूं, फैसिलिटी और स्पॉन्सरशिप बहुत सारे आते हैं, पर वीमेन्स फुटबॉल में बहुत कम आते हैं, हार्डली 2-3 स्पॉन्सर ही आते हैं। तो हमें जब भी कुछ चीजें के लिए हमें उनको रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं, तो मुझे कभी कभी लगता है कि यार हमारे पास कुछ भी नहीं आते, मतलब मेंस और वीमेन्स में मतलब बहुत अंतर है, हाँ बहुत डिफरेंस है। उसकी वजह से कभी रिक्वेस्ट करने में ऐसे लगता है कि यार हमारे पास कुछ भी नहीं आते। और जैसे IWL का जो भी मतलब विनर का जो केस प्राइस है, उसके लिए भी रिक्वेस्ट करने में ऐसे लगता है कि कोई स्पॉन्सर ही नहीं आ रहे, तो हम क्या करें, मतलब कैसे बोलूं। जैसे मेंस की टूर्नामेंट में जैसे उन लोग बेस्ट प्लेयर के लिए 25-30 हजार मिलता है, और विमेन्स लीग की बेस्ट प्लेयर में 5,000 मिलता है। मतलब बहुत डिफरेंस है। तो वो चीज मैं उनको बोलती हूँ, बट उन लोगों का जवाब ये आता है कि जैसे हम टूर्नामेंट ऑर्गेनाइज करते हैं उसमें कितना पैसे लोगों से आते हैं, और मेंस की जब ऑर्गेनाइज करते हैं उसमें कितना पैसे आते हैं, मतलब बहुत अंतर है। उसकी वजह से ये लोग मेंस फुटबॉल में ज्यादा फोकस इसलिए करते हैं और वुमेन्स फुटबॉल में कम करते हैं। जो अपॉर्चुनिटी वुमेन्स फुटबॉल में मिलेगा तब ये भी इक्वल हो सकते हैं।
But I think here, I think it's more about the mentality of the people who take these decisions, who are supposed to put the structure in place, put all these things in place. I think I don't think anyone would disagree कि women's sports में बहुत potential है, बहुत opportunity है, या companies are interested, or there's more branding or marketing opportunities with women's sports. I think everyone agrees that. But it is about realizing कि they have to having that mentality of seeing both the genders equally. कि भाई आप equal, just treat them equally. We're not asking for any special treatment or any special things. Just give us what we deserve, what is being given to the men's team, or just equal, whatever. It's not a comparison. I don't want to compare women's team या जो भी हमारी चीजें होती है with the men's team, because there are a lot of differences. We have to understand the society. We are different, and Indian society works like this. That's the mentality, but it has to change. Not just Indian society, but I think in general also. We've seen the US women's national team who won the World Cup, still fighting for equal play. Now recently they won their legal battle for equal pay. So I mean, these developed countries are also facing these very raw issues. So that is what we are facing. And I think at the end of the thing, what I really feel, summing up the whole conversation is कि development के लिए, see how because I am still involved with She Cakes and I know what is happening at the grassroots, how the girls or the kids get involved in the sport or play football is कि they want to see a long-term potential. They want to see कि हाँ अगर मैं खेल रही हूँ तो मैं आगे इसका करियर बना सकती हूँ. So करियर कहाँ बनेगा वो? National team में only 20 players are called up for the national team. 20. What if अब कितने करोड़ों की population में you can't start by aiming for those 20. I feel like there has to be a wider opportunity available for like Abhishek shared, that there needs to be more opportunity offered for girls that will motivate not just the girls but also the parents, because we have to realize and understand that they are the ones taking the decision for their kids, especially for girls at a young age. Boys can still figure out and they can, fight with their parents and ask for what they want, but that doesn't happen with girls, unfortunately, in India. We still have to listen to and be, convince our parents to take those decisions for us. So we have to understand the real issues here. We have to understand, like Abhishek said, and I 100% agree, that the league has to be made more professional. We have to offer those kind of long-term opportunities and professional career choices and career option for the girls. That will get more participation, I feel, at the grassroots level. Of course, there needs to be other things done, like educating the parents and just spreading the awareness, just locally everywhere, with small organizations doing their bit at the local level. Every stakeholder is important. But I think in terms of what the AIFF or the main stakeholders can do is have a more professional kind of league, which is like we discussed, the under-17 league that is going to be conducted, which is an important thing. But I think the professional aspect of it, like they can actually have a career, is the biggest motivation factor, and what we need right now. I feel, from all of my experience in different sectors involved in football, there needs to be more money for the players in whatever capacity, but there needs to be more money for the players, and a structure where you have, like we've talked about, the league there, and then with the national team there has to be more consistent matches and exposures, because like we have to understand, like the men's team have ISL or I League, they're with the club throughout the year, their strength, conditioning, nutrition, everything, your injury, rehab, everything is taken care by the club. How do the women players figure that out? Most of them are not even educated. They're not educated. They don't have a job. They come from very poor background. How do you expect the players to go back home and have that same kind of diet, have the same kind of strength, being active, that can, and to play and compete at that level? So the real situation of thing is very different from what the idea that we have and where we want to go. So it's very important that Indian version of structure and plan needs to be made, because our society, our economy is very, and our mentality, our culture is very different. So we have to figure out our way of having a long-term vision and plan.
That is definitely very right too. I think to emphasize more on the what the players right now talked about, it is undisputed and undeniable that there does exist a gender disparity in Indian football. And Aditi, as mentioned by you, it is very right that even we see in developed countries that women are still fighting for their cause. Like take the example of US, as you mentioned, they recently won the legal battle for equal pay. And like just stuff like that. Even if we talk about European football, it's not like the state for women in Europe is a lot more better. Like even if we talk about like proper economic comparisons, if we talk about Europe, we can see that in Europe they don't follow what is called as a proper training compensation and solidarity mechanism by FIFA. It is applicable for men's football, but for women it's not there. Or just justification dene par, again, like to justify, everyone just keeps on saying end mein aake to justify ki paisa nahi hai industry mein, ab paisa nahi aayega to aur aage stakeholders ko kaisa jayega. So like as also mentioned by, I think, Captain Asha, that is very right that women get lesser cash prizes, they get lesser opportunities, they get lesser matches to play. So I think on that line we have to contemplate and think upon the things which we need to do in Indian context properly. And I think Abhishek will be the right person to also answer this question, since he is involved with getting sponsorships for players and leagues, that how do we ensure to get more money in the Indian women ecosystem? Like what can be done?
Yeah, okay, I'll keep it very short. See, you have to understand एक simple, like Aditi and Asha ने जो बोला, okay, try and understand their aspect. Okay, they are players. They are looking at from the aspect of हमें और मैचेस चाहिए, हम और मैचेस खेलेंगे तो हम बेटर परफॉर्म करेंगे, हम बेटर परफॉर्म करेंगे तो हमें पे ग्रेड भी बेटर मिलना चाहिए, which is 100% a given. Now the challenge for someone like them where it comes is हमारी लीग स्ट्रक्चर्ड नहीं है प्रॉपरली, हमारा कोई प्लान नहीं है उसके पीछे. लाइक अदिति सेड, आप 1.5 महीने की लीग खिलाकर सोचते हो कि अदिति पूरी साल, आशालता पूरी साल वही डाइट, वही फिजिकल कैपेसिटी, वही ट्रेनिंग रखे just to come and play for 1.5 months. That is impossible. Now when you talk about money aspects, I go back to the same model of it has to be a 3P, the 3Ps. So public private partnership is the only way it can be. For example, something what Randeep is doing with his club there, things like that may be bringing about a change. And they are also, it's not very easy for him. Hypothetically, if AIFF gets a very big sponsor, if suppose Hero comes and says, I'm going to take care of football in India, so I think that distribution can be made, and then AIFF can make under 17 plans, increase the women's league. Suppose they are given 50 crores a year, I think so they can easily expand and help clubs to make a team, give them proper budgets. It can be private, they can include private partners in it. So I think these are small tiny things that can improve and give way for more situation. Or maybe the partnership that AIFF has with FSDL, I think FSDL then should get involved and do IWL as well. अगर आप एक sport का naming rights only for men FSDL ko de rahe ho, women nahi, then that's a miss. I think AIFF should have been, it's a separate conversation on FSDL I can have sometime else. But if they were giving men's, why not a Indian Super League around women's team? Why not? The same sponsor, maybe you distribute the sponsorship into like 40% for the women and 60% for the men, no problem. But why not that initiative was taken? जब ये starting fundamental plan जब आ रहा था FSDL का to bring Indian Super League and all, I think it is that time that this should have started. So I know there's a lot of battle to be fought here, but I think it will take time. And national team performance will reflect on the sponsors. So tomorrow, if India does well in any sport, I'm telling you about hockey, no, people would laugh at women's hockey. I've been with hockey for 5 years. The minute they performed and the performance that they gave in Tokyo, they didn't win a medal, but that performance that changed the entire view of the entire country. So, they didn't win, they came 4th, but they beat Australia. They beat Australia in that match. So Indian people are very emotional people. Brands are emotional. Masses are emotional. So जिस दिन एक ऐसा performance, I remember when women's team जब Brazil के साथ हमारा match था, हम हारे थे, but that emotional side that people got, everybody was talking about, oh, India played Brazil. That made so much sense to us. I think these are the routes that we can take, and that will reflect on sponsorship and the money as well. This is my perspective at it.
Absolutely. I think it's a very interesting relationship because money brings, I think, better performance also, and better performance brings money. So I think it's something that goes hand in hand because, like Aditi said, having access to nutrition, all of that being planned, all of these things require money, right? And all of this goes into the making or breaking of a team. So I think,
Sorry, just to add here, I feel another point to, Abhishek just talked about performance and everything. And the other aspect to that is also that the masses should be able to see that performance. Right now, our women's team matches are not, they don't come on TV.
Correct. They're not broadcasted. Correct.
Half the time it's not broadcasted. How are people
going to know about it?
Fight that the players are putting in on the field. The kind of,
right.
Obviously everyone sees the result at the end of the day. They don't see, what the match was like, of course. So I think that is also a huge miss for us because now we're talking about the changes and everything. But I feel both men and women's team matches should be shown on TV to the wider audience, and that is what I think we're missing with the national team.
FSDL's partners are Star Sports. Ask them to broadcast it. Why can't they broadcast the national team matches for both the women's?
Yeah, that's how you recognize also. So now that we're talking about the women's football development, the masses, the young girls will then identify, will look up to and will see the kind of level that they
Correct.
have to be at for international, if they want to play for the country, what's the level there? How are our players playing? How can I
Who are
compete
our
with my
players also?
competitors?
People have to know who our players are.
Yeah,
And build that emotional bond. See, the idea at the end of the day, Aditi very well said, that bond has to sink in.
yeah,
No, I just can't keep complaining. Masses देखते नहीं है, masses को आप
yeah.
opportunity ही नहीं दे रहे हो देखने के लिए, तो वो
Mhm.
recognize
Yeah,
कैसे करेंगे?
absolutely, and it's not just on the field, but I think off the field also there's so many activities that should be done, which involves and connects the players with the actual masses and the youngsters and whoever. I mean, just be there for the people. That's how you build build yourself, build your profile, and let people know what you're doing.
Absolutely. I think an extension of this, we discussed this earlier also. Uh, FIFA had a campaign, a running campaign about bringing women's football to the forefront of media, right? So in that, they spoke about how if you can see it, you can be it, and I think that's exactly what these sponsorships can also bring, like making sports visible to more people, like women's football visible to more people is, I think, a good place to start to build that connection between the normal masses and the players or and the sport. And I think as an extension of that, I'd like Filarima to give her thoughts about the fan base for around women's football is increasing. It's at a very exciting stage with everything happening around women's football. It's definitely on the rise. So, what do you think is something that the growing fan base can? How can the growing fan base contribute to women's football in India?
Women's football has developed over the years, and in that we have the fan base has also increased. And with the addition of new teams, new existing teams, and the existing team of the I League, of the ISL have a women's team, that's where we actually grow the base of women's football as well. So in that way, and for actually when we're talking about growing the fan base, we're talking about the community. We're talking about uh, not just the Indian football fans, but also other football fans all over who watches other leagues, not just the Indian Football League. So how do we activate those people? How do we activate the community? How do we activate the parents? And something interesting that which a trend here in the Northeast. I mean, Ashwata I think she'll agree to this, is that we have something called these community clubs, where we have community clubs where they are backed by the communities, backed by the fans, and that is why they are still long-standing. Majority of these community clubs are still running at 100 years. The community clubs which are there, this has been running for 80 years, 90 years, and they're still existing and they're still producing the best talents in the country. Even if you look at, these under 17 team, we have clubs. If we're looking at the team under 17 team, we actually do have 7 players from Manipur. But then, however, 4 of them comes from one team, one community club that's been building them. So we also have to look at the importance of that and the importance of growing these community clubs and the community as a whole.
That's absolutely very right. I think any fan base or surrounding any sport plays a great role in development of that sport in the nation. And I think for football also, we do have a legacy. We have clubs which are worth hundreds of years old. We have had, in the past, we have had won a lot of accomplishments. And I think the fans can in fact contribute a lot to making India a great footballing nation and to get women's football the attention that is deserved by these girls.